Good morning, everybody. I know it looks like 9 viewers on right now. I am going to give it just a few more minutes so we have everybody on, and we'll go ahead and get started. I really appreciate everybody being here today. If you would just go into the chat box and type in your name and property so that I make sure that I have you on the attendance list. As I said, we'll give it just a couple more minutes. I see some more people pinging in, and we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all again for being here. It looks like I have 15 people logged into the call right now. If you would, please just use the chat box to share your name and property so I can take attendance. You only need to share your first name since this will appear on the video below or the chat below the video when it's posted online. So you don't have to share any personally identifiable information, just first name and property. And if you prefer, you can even share your IN code. Thank you all so much. I'll be right back with you. I noticed that some of you are having difficulty leaving chat. It's asking you to create a channel and send a message. So if you're having difficulty with that, you can also alternately just send me an email and let me know that you are on. And I'm sending my screen out, so I hope everybody can see that okay. And Erin, I just got your email. So again, we're just going to give it a couple more minutes. This is the first time we're using Google Hangouts, so I know there's going to be a few hiccups with it, so we'll give it just a couple more minutes for everybody to get online. Okay, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. This will be recorded and put out live on the YouTube channel. You'll be able to utilize the same link to access the training after it's done. I printed off our responses for the Google Forms just a couple of minutes ago, so if you have responded within the last minute, then just know that I'll get to those when we get back. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself to those of you who haven't met me before. It's lovely to have you on the call today. Hi, generally I don't do a screen share, but because we have Google Hangouts, I figured why not? We'll try it out. To those of you who I've met before, thank you for joining. And to those of you who I haven't met in person yet, I look forward to it. We'll go ahead and get started in, as I said, just a moment. My name is Emily Daly. I am your Director of Digital Presence for Greenwood Hospitality Group. I work with Paul Wood, our VP of Revenue Generation, the revenue team, and our Corporate Director of Sales and Marketing, Lori Jazik. I also work closely with Joe Shermer, who many of you know, and Scott Livchek, who are our VPs of Operations. And we partner on this sort of an initiative. The Reputation Champion Program is one that we started in 2013, so almost 4 years ago now. And I started it working at the front desk as a front office supervisor at the Henry Hotel in Dearborn, Michigan. So whatever shoes you are in, whether they be at the front desk or hiding in your office, getting work done, piled up with paperwork around you, I understand, and I've been there. So the purpose of our training today is so that you have a clearer understanding of the Reputation Management and Reputation Champion program that we have here with Greenwood, and hopefully to answer any questions that you have. So again, thank you to those of you who responded to the Google survey. Please note that there is a short delay in this broadcast. So if you ask a question, whether it be via email or if you do log in to utilize the chat, there's a short delay in when I'll receive that. So we'll go ahead and dive into the presentation. Again, if you have any questions along the way, if you're not logged into chat, you're certainly welcome to email me as well if that's your preference. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen and you should be able to see everything all set. Okay, so what we're going to cover today first is an overview of the Reputation Champion program. We'll talk about the impact that it has, so the reason why it's so important for all of our properties, the value of these online reviews, and the importance of our responses. We'll talk about the process, the review response process that we have here at the properties, as well as dispelling some common myths. And then we'll talk about the support that you'll be provided. So the training that you're going to get through this process, this series, and then ongoing support as well. And we'll wrap up by answering any questions that you had from the surveys, and I'll give you an opportunity. I'll check my email as well. So if you'd like to email me any questions now, please go ahead and do that. And then when we get to the end, I will address all of those questions, or as many as I can in this training. This training should not last an hour. The other two trainings will likely last an hour, and depending on how questions go, they may run over just a little bit. Don't feel bad if you have to pop off early. I understand that taking care of our guests is always number one. So if you have to pop off, again, this will be recorded and it will be immediately posted after its completion to the YouTube channel. So you'll be able to use the same link that you used to get onto this training to review it later on. Okay. So the first thing that we want to talk about is so that we have a clear understanding of what our kind of expectations are. We wanted to be able to define what good service is. And it was one of the questions that I asked in the survey. And I got varying answers, anticipating our guests' needs and providing to them, having guests' needs met without them having to ask, satisfying the guests' needs on a consistent basis, only what the guest expects and nothing more, and exceeding guest expectations. So you can see there's a little bit of variance between providing just the basics and going above and beyond. And some of that depends a little bit on your brand's definition of good service, but generally speaking, what we want to do for good service is to meet the guest's expectations and needs. And I do like the mention here of doing it without them asking, because we always want to be able to provide anticipatory service. So we don't want to always be running around trying to answer guest questions. We want to be anticipating what it is that they're needing. If it's a particularly cold day, we may want to make sure that engineering is turning the heat up to a certain level throughout the public spaces of the property to make sure that our guests don't come in feeling chilly. If we know that we have a marathon in the city, and all the runners will be getting up very early, perhaps we have a nice dinner the night before with maybe a couple of pasta specials or a nice beet salad. And then in the morning, we have good carbs and proteins available, quick grab and go in the morning. So again, not just meeting needs, but anticipating needs. Okay. So again, it's what meets the guest's expectation for timeliness, friendliness, and cleanliness, which are really the things that we're delivering, is being able to provide good service in the right amount of time, and obviously have a clean product. We also want to have an understanding of what a satisfied guest is. So again, if good service is meeting the guest's needs and anticipating their needs, then a satisfied guest, generally speaking, should be a guest where all of their needs are met. Now, this changes again if you're at a luxury property or if you're dealing with guests that aren't accustomed to your brand, because even when you're providing what they need or what they should be expecting, sometimes their expectations are a little bit different. So it may be harder to satisfy them. But generally, a satisfied guest is one whose expectations were met, again, pertaining to timeliness, friendliness, and cleanliness. Now, the key to creating satisfied guests and managing their expectations is consistency. So the key to good service is consistency. Not only am I meeting my guests' needs and anticipating their needs, I'm doing it on a consistent basis. That is how we make sure that we maintain a baseline of what good service is and have a good foundation of satisfied guests. So the program hierarchy for reputation management, I actually would love to flip this upside down, because really the core of the Reputation Champion program, of course, is you, our Reputation Champions. So you are the people who are taking charge of responding to our guest reviews. So you are the front line when it comes to responding to those online guest reviews, and oftentimes being the first point of contact for a guest who might be investigating whether or not they'd like to stay at the property. Let's say, as an example, I'm looking on TripAdvisor to find the best hotels in Minneapolis. I would be looking at the reviews that are listed there. And if you have responses as a manager of the property, you may be the first person from that property that I've had any contact with or have any frame of reference for the service that you should be experiencing. So on the property level, the Reputation Champions will have the support of an executive committee member. In some cases, the Reputation Champions are the executive committee members, in which case your general manager is your support. And if you are the general manager, hopefully you've got a great team of managers underneath you to help support your initiatives as well. And then I'm here to help with support and analytics. I know that when we talked about tools in the questionnaire, some of you had mentioned things like liking templates or more time or additional training, and that's what I'm here for. Okay, so the response timelines for our guest reviews are pretty self-explanatory. We have increased it to make sure that it meets or exceeds the expectations of all of our brands. So of the brands that have really high expectations, we meet those expectations for all of our properties. So once a guest review is posted, if it's a positive review, meaning that it's a 4 or 5-star review, we want to respond within 72 hours. So that's a 3-day window. So if a review comes in over the weekend and you don't get to it till Monday, it's not a big deal. The difference is neutral or negative reviews. Those are 3-star, 2-star, and 1-star reviews. And as you'll see when we dispel some common myths, we don't get tons of those, but we want to respond to them within 48 hours. So if you are a Reputation Champion who only works from Monday through Friday, from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m., you want to make sure that you've got somebody else to help you carry the load when those reviews come in over the weekends, because inevitably it's going to happen. Okay, so the impact of our Reputation Champion program is pretty substantial. According to a report by Cornell University School of Hospitality, a 1-point increase in a hotel's global review index, which is that index of a 1 to 5 scale. So if you go from a 3-star to a 4-star, as an example, you have generally a 0.89% increase in average daily rate, a 0.54% increase in occupancy, and a 1.42% increase in revenue per available room, or RevPAR, if you've never heard that before. So that can be major increases when we're talking about properties that are generating $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, $2 million, $4 million, $5 million a year. A 1.42% increase in revenue per available room is a really significant number. So a small increase in our review rating can have a drastic impact on the revenue for our guest rooms. Now, I do need to draw attention to the fact that when we're looking at any of these are just correlation relationships. So there's a correlation between an increase in your ratings and an increase in your revenue. It's not necessarily a causational increase. So there are a lot of other factors that go into this. Things like market trends, and if a local hotel is closed, things like that. So market flows can have a major impact on that as well. But they did calculate for any confounding variables, not to be super confusing, but they did account for any things like market shifts when they did these numbers. So generally speaking, while this is just a correlation of the two, you can assume causation, that there's a direct relationship between an increase in our reviews and an increase in our revenue, which makes sense. Happier guests want to come stay with us more, and they're more comfortable spending more money. So we've had this program in place for just about 4 years now. So in 2013, when we started, if you take a look here, you can see the overall review ratings, positive reviews, review pace, reviews per property, and total reviews. So that light gray is our 2016 year, and the dark gray is our 2013 year. So you see that in 2013, this is an average for all of our Greenwood properties that we have in Revenate. So every single one of our Greenwood properties. In 2013, we had a 4.04 rating. By 2016, we'd increased to a 4.14 rating. So think about that. In the past number of years, we've had a number of hotels undergo major renovation. A lot of you have come onto the portfolio relatively recently, and that can oftentimes, a change of management or a change of ownership can drastically impact our scores, but we've seen increases. We saw an increase in the percentage of positive reviews. We saw an increase in review pace from 7.1 reviews a week to 11.6 reviews per week. So for some of you, you're hanging around that 5 reviews a week online, but there are some of you that are on this call, like Ebony at the Holiday Inn Express in downtown Detroit, that hover closer to 20 reviews a week. Some of you are really raking in those reviews. So reviews per property total, this is for the entire year. In 2013, we averaged 370 roughly, and in 2016, we averaged 605. So major increase in the number of reviews for properties. And again, some of you are back at 370 3 years ago, and you're over 1,000 for the year now. So interesting to note that. And then again, for total reviews overall, for Greenwood, in 2013, we had 5,500, and in 2016, we had 9,000. So again, we did have a number of hotels come on over that period of time, but this does account for that. Any of the hotels that came on in 2016, Revenate pulls your data from 2013. So even if you weren't part of the portfolio then, we can still see how many reviews you had that year. So major increases. Now, there are also some impacts that these specific reviews have. When 4 out of 5 customers will consider revising their purchasing decision after reading an online review. Now, this number comes from the Pew Research Center, and it's of all consumers. It's not just of hotel consumers, it's of all consumers. So 4 out of 5 consumers will consider their purchasing decision after reading online reviews. So this could mean that you might not purchase something until you've read a review and it comes back as positive, I'm notorious for hunting Amazon for the best rated best sellers and reading through all of the questions, especially for electronics. But this also includes if somebody's already made a purchase decision. Let's say in the case of your hotel, they've already booked a room and they go online later and read reviews, and perhaps they see a lot of negative reviews recently about something that's a hot button issue for them. Let's say it's hot water as an example. And they may decide that they don't want to stay at your property anymore. But on the flip side of that, perhaps they were looking to stay at another property, went on and took a look at reviews and saw that your hotel had outstanding feedback about the how welcoming you are to pets, and they are traveling with their favorite furry friend. So that may change their purchasing decision for the better. Now, the nice thing is that even if somebody has decided that the reviews for your property aren't great and they might be concerned about staying there, they'll consider the presence of an appropriate management response when making their booking decision as well. So if they were planning on not staying with you, but there's an appropriate management response, they'll read that more closely than they read the actual review, which is a relief for a lot of us, because every now and again you get a review that just either it was just a weird, erroneous situation and the guest just had a bad stay, or it could be something like they flat out lied and you couldn't get the review removed. But if you have an appropriate response, meaning that it's not combative, that you're addressing their concerns or questions, that you're showing that you care, and that perhaps you're appropriately informing your future travelers, they say, oh, well, this management company obviously cares and they've made any corrections or amendments, or they don't want this to happen again. I'll give them another chance. Now, you don't have to take this quantitative data as an example. We have qualitative experiences of this. I still, even though you all have your Reputation Champion programs in place for the most part, I still every now and again get calls from properties that have been responding to their own reviews for some time because my email address is still on file for old reviews from a year or 2 years ago. So people have made changes to their reviews because of our management responses. So an example here was Mark, who had stayed at one of our properties in Detroit. He had originally started out with his previous review as a 1-star review, was not happy with his experience. And when I responded to him, he reached out and there had been a misunderstanding. So he updated us to a 4-star rating. So it had been a 1-star. He was very confused about, I can't recall the topic right now, but he had a very difficult misunderstanding with something that I was able to take care of for him. So he upgraded us to a 4-star. He came back the following year. He actually emailed me before he came back to the hotel and asked about the heating system, if it had been repaired. And I said, well, yes, it certainly has. And he went back after having stayed with us previously and updated his review to a 5-star. So even after people have left reviews, that doesn't mean they won't go back and change them, either because they just decide that you've taken care of the situation for them, or in some instances, if it's been a major misunderstanding, it's worth asking. Every now and again, you'll have somebody who means to put a 5-star and they accidentally put a 1-star, but their comments are fantastic. Sometimes that's just a mistake, and you can ask them to go back and correct that. We've also stopped it from giving us bad reviews. So we had a guest who had an unpleasant experience with a credit card statement, and they thought that I perhaps would be able to assist them. I was able to. I responded to them, and they were able to process a refund to the card, and she never left a negative review. She actually left a very nice 5-star review. Everything else at the property had been fantastic for her, but she was concerned because there had been a billing issue with a credit card authorization. So we were able to amend that for her, and she went, instead of leaving us a negative review because of that, left us a 5-star positive review. Sometimes people will see those reviews online before they've made a booking decision and be concerned about something. So we had a guest who was inquiring about a stay, and they'd been reading some TripAdvisor reviews that they were concerned about some issues that had been listed at the property. So we were able to speak with them, calm their concerns, and they had a fantastic stay with us. And also after they left, they provided a positive review for us as well. We also see this happen after somebody's already booked a reservation. So they've booked a reservation, perhaps they're on their way to the hotel, and they didn't have a great experience with service, but they reached out to us via email or phone number because our contact information is there. And we were able to address their concerns even before they got on property. So we took that negative review way back a whole bunch of steps, and were able to prevent it from ever happening. So again, we saw a lot of quantitative data about the positive impact of reviews. We've seen qualitative examples of that. And I want to take an opportunity now to dispel some common myths that I see with a lot of the properties. And some of these were affirmed for me with all of you when we did the survey. So the first rumor that I'm going to start out with is that people only leave negative reviews. So I'm really pleased to see that a lot of you feel like with the reviews that we have, that there are a fair mix of positive and negative reviews. So most of you thought that there was a mix of positive and negative reviews, and some of you also thought that most reviews were positive. And I'm pleased to inform you that for the Greenwood Hospitality portfolio, we overwhelmingly have a vast majority of our reviews are positive. So in excess, as you saw, 75% positive reviews. So that means of every 4 reviews that we have in, 3 of them are positive, which is fantastic. So really good numbers from that perspective. Even across the industry, generally, positive reviews are the vast majority of what we get. So I was glad to see that everybody was in agreement with that. Oh, sorry. So one other rumor that we see a lot is that reviews take too much time to respond to. But actually, our properties averaged, as you saw back earlier on, our properties saw, let me just show you the number again. So our properties saw only 605 reviews per year, which was about 11 per week. So generally it takes, let's say, 2 to 5 minutes to respond to a review. Sometimes it'll be a quick 30-second, glad you had a great stay with us. And sometimes it'll be a little bit more. So let's say if we average, 2 to 5 minutes per review, that still is taking you less than an hour over the course of a week. So if it's an hour over the course of the week, that's only leaving you, 20 minutes or so a day that you'd need to go in and respond to any reviews. So not a whole lot of time. And the nice thing about that is, again, being a front office supervisor, when I started this program, I was doing all of those from the front desk. Our front office supervisor team at that time did not spend any time in the back office. We were working the desk. So during lulls in the day, I just would pull up those review sites, leave those tabs open and go through it. And it was a great way to fill the time, a great way to take care of our guests, kept everything front of mind for me. I was able to address concerns right there because I was at the radio. I was in guest reservations all the time, so it was very easy to respond to those reviews. One of the other rumors that I hear a lot is that we don't know what to say. And I had read from some of you when you feel about templates that you find them helpful, but some people also thought that they were a little too generic. And this is kind of the predecessor to that. This rumor is that we don't know what to say, but in truth, you can use a template. The way that I generally follow any of those online guest reviews, and we'll get into this much more in our training on Wednesday, but I follow the LEARN model, which is something that we use for service recovery all of the time. It's just the written application of that tool. So the LEARN model, of course, if you don't already know, and I love this so much, it's great, is listen, empathize, apologize, respond, and notify. So again, we'll talk about how to actually apply that on Wednesday, because just hearing it, you can be like, well, how am I supposed to listen if they wrote it and I can't show that I'm listening if they can't see me and I'm not actually hearing them? Also, how do you empathize, and how are you responding or notifying them if it's just one review? Anyways, we'll get into that, but suffice it to say that while it can be difficult you may feel as though you don't know what to say, starting with a template is your best tool, best way to start off. And then I did hear from some of you, a number of you do use, about half of you that responded use templates and find them helpful, but some of you either don't have them or are concerned that they're too generic. Now, the metaphor that I use for this is that there's something that all of us have that is absolutely, well, for the most part, barring things that are broken or longer or missing, that all of us have as a core foundation that we have all built upon. And it sounds silly, but we all have skeletons. Generally speaking, our knee bone is connected to our thigh bone is connected to our hip bone, et cetera, et cetera. So even though we all generally fall in the same arrangement and we generally have the same number of bones, we are vastly different people. So based on the way that we're built outside of our skeleton and the clothes that we wear and the hair that we have and the colors that we like, we are so personalized. So even though we have this template, that doesn't mean that it can't be personalized. A set structure can still be personal. You just have to be genuine and empathetic, and always, always, always thank the guest. Okay, so that dispelled some of our myths. So we'll continue on. The process for our review responses is pretty simple. It's a 5-step. A review comes in. You investigate any of the claims. So if somebody had a great experience with the server in the restaurant, you find out who that server was. If they found that their room was dirty, you find out what room it was. Then once you've taken care of all of that, you post a response. You make any improvements. Now, again, if it's a positive review, how are you supposed to improve upon that? Well, positivity invites positivity. So if you had a server who was recognized for providing a great experience, you want to recognize that server for providing a positive experience. It's a great opportunity to use your human resources team and your executive member to help support your role as a reputation champion. But I always loved being able to walk through the hotel and saying, "Hey, Paul, it was so great to see you. So great to see you. Hey, congratulations on that positive review you got on TripAdvisor the other day." And sometimes they'd be like, "Oh yeah, thanks so much." And sometimes they'd be like, "What positive review?" And I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, let me print it out for you. It was so good." So it gives you great rapport with other people throughout the property. And then of course you want to track your performance. And we'll be able to do that using the Revinate reports that we run, or if you have Medallia, you'll be able to see that in Medallia. But the nice thing about those reports is they'll be able to see your trends over time. So at properties, let's say as an example, and I don't mean to call anybody out, but I'm going to anyway, the Holiday Inn Express in Detroit, when we started at that property, we had some difficulties that were outside of the control of our service team. Structural things with the property because it was more of an advanced aged property that happen over time. But seeing their progression over the past number of years, while we didn't see immediate increases in the ratings, we saw the comments for any of the negative things that were happening start to decrease. So we started seeing the negative trends go down and the positive trends go up. While service was always fantastic for that property, they were seeing issues with valet and parking. And then they brought in a new valet company and those started going away with internet. And then they made improvements there, bedding, and they made improvements there. So any of you who have gone through renovation can attest to this. You have a number of different, perhaps opportunities prior to renovation. You address as many of those as possible. So any of the instances of those mentions in a negative way go way down. And then, of course, post-renovation or post-improvement, or as you're focusing on that, you'll start seeing those increase. So even before we saw the numerical improvements, we started seeing the guest comment improvements. So really nice to see that. Now you'll be receiving a lot of support. The first thing, of course, is this program training. So we have our introductory training today. And then tomorrow at the same time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll do a live broadcast for our platform, our channel review. So that will go over how to actually go into Revinate. I don't go into Medallia only because that platform changes depending on the brand that you're within. But I'll go over Revinate very generally, and then we'll dive into how to actually respond on Expedia Partner Central, Booking.com, Google+, Facebook. All of those channels will actually go through how to tactically respond to those. And then we'll make sure that if you don't have access to them, I'll start that process tomorrow as well. And then you'll also have a training the following day on Wednesday about how to actually respond to those reviews. So we'll go over review response. So as we did today, you'll also have a survey to fill out at the beginning of each of those, so that I have an idea of questions that we might need to address during the training. And then you'll also be getting resources. So in addition to the training that we have this week, some of the resources that you'll be getting is slides for any of these, as well as any of the meeting minutes. Again, you'll get access to any of the platforms that you need to respond to. And for those of you who don't have review response templates yet, you'll be pleased to know that I have a list of those review response templates, and it's broken down by the Learn model, which we'll be utilizing when we do our training on Wednesday, so that you can very easily put things all together. And it's customizable. I do this for all of our properties. I want to make sure that any of the resources that we provide to you are ones that you can use to suit your needs best. So please know that any of the tools that I share, you can customize them to suit you. And if you're finding that you're having difficulty with something, just reach out and say, hey, Emily, this isn't working and this is why, and we'll work to make it better. There have been countless times with both the reputation program and the social media program where a property will bring an idea forth that's just outstanding, and we implement it for all of the properties. Okay, so those are some of the program resources that you'll be getting. There's also a number of how-to guides, and as you ask questions over the course of this period of time, if there's something that warrants it, I'll create a new how-to guide, and we have all those resources available. So that goes over program training and program resources, and then you'll also be getting ongoing support. So of course you have your executive team member to tap into if you have any questions with things like service recovery, or to what level you should be compensating somebody, or how you might want to respond to a review. But I'm also here for that as well. If you are ever having somebody who, let's say it's something scary like a bed bug issue, or something like a disgruntled employee, or anything like that, or it could be a good review and you're just not quite sure how to break it down. If you find that you're taking it really personally and you're having trouble walking away, just send me a note with a copy of the review and we'll talk through it. Or I'll give you kind of a baseline of what I think might be an appropriate response and ask for your feedback on it. So it's all an opportunity for additional learning. You'll also be able to receive Greenwood uses Revinate for reporting. So we have these cool things called your GS2 reports. And all of our properties will do a quarterly GS2 review. So the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter, we will go through your quarterly review. Now, if you're brand new, this is an important note. If you're brand new to the Reputation Champion program and we've never had a call before, for the first 3 months of the program, we'll do a monthly call. And the reason why I do that is I want to make sure that that nothing falls through the cracks for you. I want to make sure that you have access to all of the channels that you need, that you have all of the tools that you're looking for, and that we're in communication so that I can help you however you need. And usually within those first 3 months, it gives us plenty of time to work out all the kinks, and I can then just like push out in the nest. It will be relatively easy for a lot of you coming on board now, because I know many of you are already responding to reviews, but I just want to make sure that I'm providing as much support as I can. And then we'll also, this is something that we started doing with our social media champions. One of the hardest things about responding to reviews is coming up with the solution for the problem. And I noticed that some of you saw that as well when you talked about what the hardest part of responding to a guest review is understanding what really happened, responding to negative reviews, what verbiage to use, making them more personal, relating to a guest experience, being empathetic without admitting fault, and being consistent. So things like that. These are experiences and difficulties that all of us have. And even something as strange as having ladybugs outside of your property there may be another property that's experiencing that. So in order to allow for more collaboration and more brain power, we will start doing monthly reputation champion calls. So it's going to be much like our DOSM calls or general manager calls. They're optional. You don't have to join them. I understand that we all have busy days and get pulled away from the desk, but it'll give us an opportunity we'll do a quick training item at the beginning, and then we'll do a round table so that everybody can share a success and maybe something that they're having a difficult time with, so that they can have other people from around the portfolio weigh in a little bit. It can feel very isolating when you're the only person responding to reviews in a property. So just know that you're not alone. There are many more of us out there, and I want you all to be able to feel as though you have a supporting tribe. So that's going to be also the opportunity for us to network with each other. And then there's also always going to be opportunity for industry training. So if Revinate or TripAdvisor or Expedia Partner Central has a reputation management training that becomes available, I will share it with all of you. So again, we went over program training, we went over program resources, and we went over ongoing support. I'm going to check my email right now so that we can go over any questions that have come in. A number of you had asked about or communicated that the hardest part of responding to guest reviews was verbiage or being empathetic or having time to research the issue accordingly. So time and verbiage, it looks like, were the two biggest things. So please know that we will be going over a lot of that when we do the review response training on Wednesday. Responding to poor reviews, personalizing a template so it doesn't feel canned. We'll go over all of those. I noticed some of you also were looking for access to the review sites. So in the survey for tomorrow, I'll be asking which platforms you need access to. And because it'll be associated with your email address, just plug in the platforms you need access to, and I'll start that process for you. And for those of you who mentioned that you would like a platform to monitor reviews, if you don't have access, if your property doesn't have Medallia or you don't have access to Medallia, we can arrange that. And again, Greenwood also holds a Revinate contract for a lot of the properties. So if you're at a Hilton or an IHG property, that will be going away unless your property opts in for it. But it's no longer going to be included with the brand. Okay. So it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of other stuff from the survey that came up. And I don't really see any other questions in here. I'm going to give it just another couple of minutes. So again, if you have any questions, just send me a quick note and let me know so that I can address that. I'm going to check the chat as well to see if anything has come in, if anybody had been able to log into chat. Okay, so I don't see anything that's come in from chat. In that case, we're basically wrapped up for the day. So thank you all for taking the time to be here. As I mentioned, this training will be available using the same link that you used to log into this, and it will be available immediately. Again, our next training is tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so you'll be able to use that same link. It'll bring you to this portfolio of trainings, and then you'll be able to log in or just view this live. Again, if you have any other follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. I'll be happy to address any questions that you have offline as well. Again, thank you all so much for taking the time to fill out the survey, for emailing me with other questions, and of course for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here. I look forward to working with all of you, and again, please reach out if you have any questions. I'm going to type my email address in the chat box, although you all should have it anyway. And if you have any questions after this, just reach out and let me know. Okay, so that's in there. And if any of you need anything, again, my name is Emily Daly, your Director of Digital Presence. I really appreciate you taking that time to be here today. And again, if you need anything else, let me know. Thank you all. Enjoy today.